The Bad Guys is a 2022 animated film based on a children's book series of the same name and produced by DreamWorks. The film takes place in a city where there is a group of legendary criminals formed by Mr. Wolf, who is the most cunning and leader of the group, Mr. Snake, who is adept at opening safes, cracking passwords and eating everything in sight, and his favorite dish is guinea pigs. Miss Tarantula is the tech expert and super hacker. Mr. Shark is the team's master of disguise. Mr. Piranha is extremely crazy and gives off smelly gases and has a vocation to be a singer. They are always pursued by the police chief Misty, who always tries to capture them but fails. After committing another robbery, the gang returns to their hideout, and they end up watching a news from Governor Diane, who underestimates the gang on television, leaving Mr. Wolf is angry, and now he plans to steal the Golden Dolphin Award, which is given to the most respected citizens of the city. That year's winner would be Professor Marmalade, who is known for discovering a heart-shaped meteor in a crater in the middle of the city. The pack infiltrates the Golden Dolphin Awards, and Mr. Wolf arrives to personally speak with Governor Diane as part of the plan, and the two end up dancing and liking each other. After that, he tries to steal a bag from an elderly lady, but she trips and almost falls down the stairs, but Mr. Wolf saves her and the old lady praises Mr. Wolf, claiming to be a nice guy, which makes him euphoric, but he still goes along with the plan. While he and Mr. Snake try to steal the trophy that was backstage, they are discovered and the criminals are arrested. Upon being arrested, Mr. Wolf has an idea to convince people that they could change and become the nice guys. He convinces Professor Marmalade to mentor them with Diane approval, and she then accepts and tasks Professor Marmalade changing criminals. The rest of the pack has doubts as to whether Mr. Wolf is really a plan or if he is really being a nice guy, and he claims that it would actually be just a scam to steal the Golden Dolphin honestly. And all the criminals agree to the plan. The next day, the pack is taken to Professor Marmalade Mansion, and he begins to pass some tests of kindness like saving a kitten from a tree and crossing the street with an elderly woman, but apparently they prove unable to adapt to the concept of good behavior. Professor Marmalade decides to try another test by taking the gang to a factory where several guinea pigs are held in captivity illegally, and sends the criminals to try to break into the factory and free them all. Mr. Snake offers to free the guinea pigs, but ends up eating them all, forcing the others to make Mr. Snake spit them out. The crowd that was protesting outside perceives the presence of criminals, which ends up creating a big problem. That night, Diane shows up at the mansion and decides to cancel the experiment, but changes her mind when Mr. Wolf confesses that he wants to change his life, and the governor starts to hope he can. After she leaves, Mr. Wolf decides to save a kitten that was stuck in a tree, and he succeeds, and Professor Marmalade appears filming Mr. Wolf's attitude saving the cat. The next day, a news report informs about the footage of Mr. Wolf saving the cat, and the pack starts to be recognized as the nice guys. Mr. Snake starts to get worried and fears he is losing his friend Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf plots a new robbery, in which the plan would be that Mr. Piranha and Mr. Shark would distract the crowd during the Golden Dolphin Awards, so Mr. Snake, with the help of Miss Tarantula, would unlock a police chief's briefcase Misty, who would be attending the event. They would get a key that would unlock a glass jar where the trophy was kept, and the lights would go out. They would switch to a fake one and run away when the lights were turned back on. On the night of the event, Mr. Piranha and Mr. Shark perform at a jazz show during the party, and Mr. Wolf invites Diane to dance with him, which sparks a certain romance between the two. Mr. Snake manages to steal the password of the lock where the trophy was kept, along with Miss Tarantula. After the dance, the gang takes to the stage, and before Professor Marmalade receives the award, Mr. Wolf delivers a speech. The idea was that he would press a button to turn off the lights, but upon realizing he was being recognized as a nice guy, he didn't press the button. Suddenly, the lights go out, and when they are turned back on, the meteorite that was on display disappears. The gang ends up taking the blame for the disappearance of the meteor, and desperate, they try to escape, and Mr. Wolf gives Diane the address of his hiding place. When the pack is arrested again, Professor Marmalade meets them privately inside the police car and reveals that he stole the meteorite and disguised himself as the old lady that Mr. Wolf saved and had the latter help manipulate the pack into taking the blame. Revolted, Mr. Wolf tries to attack Professor Marmalade, but he opens the door of the police car, revealing to the crowd that Mr. Wolf is aggressive and has not changed his old habits. Diane goes to the secret hideout and sees all the stolen stuff. Meanwhile, in prison, Mr. Wolf explains to his gang that he doesn't want to be a criminal anymore and that they can be better, but Mr. Snake refuses, which leads to a fight between them, when suddenly a notorious criminal rescues, revealing herself to be Diane, who also says that she reformed when she tried to steal the prize for herself. Upon reaching the shore, the pack bitterly abandons Mr. Wolf for betraying them. When they return to the hideout, they find it completely empty, as Mr. Wolf has revealed his location to Diane as compensation for his crimes. After Mr. Snake voluntarily gives Mr. Shark a popsicle at the bottom of a fridge, the criminals realize they can change their ways and continue to help Mr. Wolf. However, Mr. Snake denies it and abandons them. Meanwhile, Mr. Wolf and Diane break into Professor Marmalade Mansion, but are caught in a trap. Professor Marmalade arrests them and reveals his evil plan, which is to control the minds of all guinea pigs using a magnetic force emitted by the meteorite, in order to steal the money that was being funded for charity. To Mr. Wolf's surprise, Mr. Snake had switched sides and allied with Professor Marmalade. Before they can finish them off, they are rescued by the rest of the pack. They then take the meteorite and try to thwart Professor Marmalade plans. After a hectic effort, the gang arrives at the police station to deliver the meteorite until they decide to go after Mr. Snake and bring him back, despite his betrayal. During the chase, Professor Marmalade betrays Mr. Snake as an advantage, and the bandits risk their lives to save him, trading with Professor Marmalade for his safety in exchange for the meteorite. After rescuing Mr. Snake and destroying Professor Marmalade mind control helmet, the criminals turn themselves into the authorities to prevent Diane from revealing her former past. Professor Marmalade tries to take credit for retrieving the meteorite, but he discovers that it is a fake meteorite and that Mr. Snake had planned it from the start, having destroyed the real one, which violently blows up his mansion along with it from afar, revealing it as the thief. When the fake meteorite lands on Professor Marmalade, a diamond he stole from Diane also falls from his hands, and the authorities recognize it as having been stolen by Scarlet Paw years ago. His reputation is destroyed and he ends up being arrested along with the gang. A year later, the gang is finally released from prison for good behavior, and so they begin their new crime-fighting careers, with Diane along with them.